Hey guys, Scotty here, and we're back in the garage, and it's been a long time. Now, just on 12 months ago, I got a new job, which means I haven't had much chance to work on the ute or the wagon. But as part of that new job with Street Machine magazine, I have had the chance to build up a pretty tough 265 with the boys at Powerhouse Engines. Well, actually, they built it, and I just looked on. But anyway, ran it up on the dyno the other day, and it made 300 horsepower, which is pretty good from a 4.3 litre straight six, single 4-barrel, hydraulic cam. It's nothing crazy, but 300 horsepower, man, that's going to make this old girl go real well. So, we're going to drag out the old 245. If that made 100 horsepower, I'd be really surprised. It is a pig, and not much fun to drive, so I'm going to drag that out, shove the new goodness in there, the new hotness, this 265 sitting right here. We're going to shove that in there, and 300 horsepower, man, this thing should be an easy 13-second weapon, and should be a decent cruiser as well, and that's, you know, what its main job is. So anyway, I've already dropped the water, already pulled the bonnet off. Let's just get into it, drag this engine out, and shove in the new hotness. Beauty. Because of the way the extractors are set up in this car, I can't pull the engine out with the extractors on. So it means I have to pull the intake and exhaust off separately. So there's always a couple bolts that are really hard to get to and really awkward. And in this case, it's the starter motor, which has to come out. You've got to pull it out because the extractors foul on it as you try and pull the extractors out. The extractors have to come out so the engine can come out. So it's a vicious circle. Anyway, so I've finally got the bolts out on the starter. I can try and sneak that up past these extractors. Here it is. Oh, there's that. And now, the extractors can come out. Yay! So there we are, empty engine bay. Needs a bit of a clean up. There's some dirty watermarks and oil and all sorts of things. We'll give that a clean up and then shove the other engine in. Okay, so we've transferred all the good bits off this engine. This is the old engine, so rocker cover, side plate, alternator, sensors, engine mounts, all that stuff I've transferred over to the good engine. Now I've got to do the auto. Now the auto is a 904 torque flight, and our American friends would assume that's a normal fitment behind this engine, but it's not. Normally the Hemi 6 came with a Borg-Warner 35, right? So the 3-speed auto, pretty weak. I've gone for the torque flight many years ago because I used to have a turbo set up in this car. So I've kept the torque flight set up. It's a full manual 904. It's a good box, even though it seems to be leaking fluids all over the ground at the moment. That's only because I had to pull 2 bolts out of the pan. But anyway, I've got to now transfer that over to the new engine, and it's got an adapter kit which is made by Castlemaine Rod Shop, and it's a great kit. It's been on a few engines now and it's worked perfectly every time. So to put the 904 behind the Hemi 6, I've had to use this adapter, and so now I've got to move all that adapter and everything over to this engine, and that's not actually a bolt-on deal either, as I'll show you. So the 904 conversion's been pretty easy up to this point, alright? Drill this hole out, bolt your plate on, bolt your spacer on, put your flex plate on, spacer for the torque converter as well. Pretty simple stuff. The only trouble is this kit's designed for a 727 and the starter motor sits slightly lower on a 727 than it does a 904. Now under here we've got a bit of a ledge. Now that has to be cut away, otherwise we won't have enough room to put our starter motor. So out comes the big angle grinder. It's a bit bodgy, I know, but what else are you going to do? Okay, so we've cut away the larger chunks with Big Bertha over there. It's done a pretty good job, but now we'll dress it up with this little girl. All right, back into it. Ears on. So we're getting pretty close to firing it up now, but I thought I'd show you this Aussie Speed 4-barrel intake. Now this made 296 with a 650 Holly. We're going to use a 470, which brings it back to about 286. That's alright, 286 horsepower. But have a look inside and you can see, well, it's hard to see there, but you can sort of see that there's a wall that blocks off those ports just there. So the charge has to go around there, and that's to give it pretty even distribution across the manifold, and it works really well. Hey guys, so it's been a long day, but the engine's finally in and it runs. Just took it for a short squirt, and I'll tell you what, oh my god, this thing, it is a weapon. The old motor, she would have had a hard time pulling a greasy stick out of a sheep's bum, but this thing, holy crap. Alright, Johnny here's built me a killer. I got a big shout out to the Johnny and the boys at Powerhouse Engines, Chook, Brian, Trev, man, they are legends. This engine is a killer, alright. Made 300 on the dyno with bigger carby and all that. I reckon in its current form, without the spacer, without the big carby, it's probably, you know, 275 to 280. And I'll tell you what, that is a lot of horsepower in this thing, because this isn't that heavy. I'll tell you what, it gets up and boogies. Hits 3 grand and it's like it's turbo on boost. I tell you what, unfortunately I didn't get to put the converter in. I really need it now, I can tell, but it still cruises along quite nice, and you step on it and she goes, but when it hits that 3 grand, holy crap, she just rockets. So that's next on the list, I guess, converter, but I'll put it on the stripper as it is and see what it runs. I reckon she's an easy 14-second car, but I reckon high 13s for this thing, really. It's pretty quick. In Australia, the Hemi 6 got a... Will you shut the fuck up?